Causenetic family.
Hey, welcome to the Causenetic at World Council podcast.
Causenetic means being a person or thing that gives rise to a phenomenon that's dynamic or energizing.
We're tackling topics and telling the truth.
I'm Rodrigua.
And I'm Chief Vinson.
So today we have lovely guests, and our topic is work, 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 work. Y'all thought I was Rihanna, didn't you? I know you did. But we are talking about the future of work with Vision 2030, and we have two amazing guests with us. The first one here is Miss Ianne, Aquino, TinTim, and she is the CEO of the Albay YMCA in the Philippines, and Kirsty Peterson, who is with the YMCA of Canada in Vancouver. Welcome to the Causenetic podcast. Yes, we are so excited to have you all to talk about an incredibly important subject, particularly now, right, after the pandemic, this idea of workforce development and workforce readiness and meaningful work. Because and I know at least us in the United States, what we are experiencing now is that young people are really adamant and clear about wanting meaningful work, right? They don't just want to go do this 9-to-5 punch a clock work, kind of robotic. They really want to make a difference. So TinTim, tell us about some of the amazing things that you guys are doing at your YMCA in the Philippines.
Okay, for me, when I started this work on employment and entrepreneurship, my place is a disaster-prone area in the Philippines. Yeah. And so I started working with displaced people. So when they are transferred to relocation area where there are no jobs, we created jobs. And so now, what we are trying to do now with the young people, I start with primary schools doing financial literacy, because this is not being taught in school or at home. So we teach them money management, saving, and having financial plans. Even, small things to buy, to plan for them at the end of the year, something like that, to start young, because many Filipinos are in debt, so you have to teach them young. Yeah. Then we have employment skills development, as well as life skills. So you have to teach them that, especially this time after the pandemic. The university students have 2 years online classes, and they don't get experiences, like real experiences, wherein when you find jobs, that's the first qualification they are looking for.
Experience.
Experience,
yes. Yep.
And they don't have that. So we have to have an intervention about that one. And we develop also social enterprises for women and young people. Okay. So we have this program on building their own businesses. So like startup, pitching in, and product development, and joining fair trades to promote their products as well.
I love that. That financial literacy piece is a big piece. Like that's the missing link. We're always trying to help prepare young people for the world of work and to go out and make money, and then we forget to kind of teach them how to manage it so they can kind of keep it for a little while, right?
How do we develop a basic budget? I had to go through this process in my own home. And it's like, and my son is the smartest one, and we had to go through this budget. Like, hey, buddy, how are we going to survive here? And like, if you don't get that early on in life, and through the and just doing some small things. You know, hey, here's your allowance. Here's $1. Like how you segment that those right there to be able to save some. And then we talk about the debt part. I mean, that in itself is crazy over the place. What about you, Ianne? In that work development space, what are you guys tackling?
So we run a bunch of different programs. We work with youth primarily with multiple barriers to employment. And so one of our programs that we run across the greater Vancouver area, and it's running online actually right now because of COVID, we ended up having to move a lot of our programs online, which was pretty neat because this particular program works with youth who have mental health as a barrier to employment. Wow. And so we're looking right now at ways that we can continue to offer the program to youth online and then going back effect in person, because we see that some people are really, really anxious in sort of the little box space, and some people are really, really anxious face to face, and so it gives them an opportunity to build that community. And so we work with them on things like how food impacts your ability to go to work, how having proper nutrition and exercise and sleep, and how substances affects how you wake up the next day and how you show up to work, and work with them on mindfulness and things like that. We also run programs just for youth with general barriers to employment, so teaching soft skills, employment skills, giving them work experiences and connecting them to employers. And then actually just last week we launched a sectoral program which works with youth in a social enterprise space where we've opened up a cafe, or we're about to open up a cafe in our Y to serve our members and to serve our staff. And so the participants of that program will actually be the employees within the cafe.
Oh, that's good stuff. That's good. Hey, so
solid.
in Vision 2030, all this time that we've been here at World Council, we've been hearing about, or at least I've been gravitating towards all of the stuff around radical collaboration. Like I've said it multiple times. And I always thought about it between people, but I didn't think about it between concepts. And that radical collaboration, right, between the mental health and the workforce readiness, that is fascinating, like really helping young people who face mental health challenges still get workforce. Somebody better steal that. And when I say somebody, I mean us in the United States. I think in Dallas we should. That is really fascinating.
What are some of the successes that you've seen in that program?
Yeah.
Well, in the mental health program, I mean, they're all varied, right? Like we get young people who come in. I can remember one girl, she literally, like this was when we were back in person, and when we asked her to speak, because we do a lot of work around presentation and how they talk to other people, she would hide in her sweater.
Oh,
and
wow.
she would talk out of this little tiny hole, and she was so socially anxious that there was just no way, that she could communicate in front of people. She ended up working her way through, and she slowly came out of her sweater, and she was able to do the communication, and she did a little presentation to the group, and she actually she was really passionate about animals, and she wanted to work with animals, and so she ended up working for a local conservation organization. But interestingly enough, she ended up the communications person at that organization.
See? See how that works? Oh, man.
And the way you tell that story there, for someone who's funding a program, like you can't provide a matrix for that, right?
Right, that doesn't come through in a number.
And we got to be able to tell these type of stories more and
good.
more, and bring people into proximity to be able to see those things that are going on. That's powerful right there.
I love that.
That's powerful.
That's
I mean,
powerful.
and I like your image. I mean, you could just see the young person with a hoodie on, talking, and I've experienced that, and I've seen that right there. But to see that young person come on the other side is just pure amazing. Just amazing.
So TinTim, with your work in the Philippines, I saw where because of the pandemic and you had to do the social distancing, you guys did a lot of the schooling like outside, and you set up these mobile schooling things. And talk to us about how that interfaced with your workforce readiness. Like, how did you deliver your programs when you couldn't go into buildings and stuff?
Yeah, that was an education on wheels,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
So we go to different communities. It's a youth-led program. So we recruited young people who are taking up education as a college of education.
Yep.
So actually, it's kind of their apprenticeship as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we establish learning centers in different areas. Since we cannot gather in school, we try to supplement children's education through these young people to teach them in their own neighborhoods. So this is what we do in the community, because parents are going to work. They cannot teach their children. Not all people have gadgets for online classes, and they cannot understand if they go self-learning by themselves. So these young people who volunteered help these children who are having gaps in education. They have disrupted education. So they also receive certificates, which also makes them it's another step for employment qualification.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I'm gonna go on a side note here. Did you have another choice other than the YMCA to work, given that your grandfather founded?
Right. Right? Was there pressure? Is that pressure?
Oh, you
can't
discovered
go work for
that,
like the Boys and Girls Club or something, like when your grandfather founds the Y.
Yeah, before YMCA, I was working with a different organization. I've worked also with Oxfam Great Britain.
Yeah.
And a local NGO funded by a German agency, which is the Kindernachthilfe and the Bicol Center for Community and Development. So I've been working in other until that time.
The pool was just
Everyone
there.
Don't let you roam around just a
Yeah.
little bit, but you know where you got to end up, right?
Come back home.
Yeah.
You guys are doing just incredible work, and I think the lessons that you guys are teaching there are practices that we can use literally all over the world. But I'm liking this part of creating opportunities for the young people that you're working with, and making sure versus like, hey, here's some training now. Go, right? But you guys are building opportunities for them to begin work now. What's next in that space?
I mean, I think it's really important to be able to do all of those things because youth come to us from different backgrounds, and they have different challenges and different strengths as well. And so it's evolving, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to look at, there's a couple different things that we need to look at in terms of how we develop programming. I mean, the biggest piece is the stakeholders, the young people, but the other piece is what's happening in the labor market in terms of employers, because we could train somebody to do something, but if there's nobody who's interested in that skill, then it's not going to be very helpful for them, and then we're setting them up for disappointment. And so I think a lot of the work right now that we're doing is evolving as the economy evolves to figure out, because the other piece that's super important is that meaning behind work. And so how do we find meaning in work when the labor market can be so tricky? And so an entry-level work, especially right now, is quite challenging to fill, right? And so bringing these programs on has, like the new one, the Y Cafe, for instance, is the one that we're opening. We were not sure how that was going to land, right? Because a lot of people aren't really interested in entry-level work, but you know, you're getting people and giving them an opportunity and allowing them to be a part of a movement that's bigger than themselves. And so there's excitement in that, of being part of our Y community and being able to sort of welcome them in.
I love that.
So I think the more creative we can be about, you know, how do we help them find meaning? How do we help them grow their confidence? And then also help them be a part of the decision making and the planning around how we develop our programs. And that's some of the work that TinTim and I, you know, are doing together right now, is doing focus groups with young people all around the world.
I was going to ask that. Yeah.
You know, about how is it that you actually want to be connected to labor market, and what is it that we can do as practitioners in this space to make sure that their voices are actually heard, and that they're part of the creation of the programming.
Especially when you're talking about meaningful work, right? Like, how do we find out what's meaningful for them? Like, I know what's meaningful for me. Anything where I could get shoes, where I could buy shoes, because I like shoes.
We're talking about work.
Well, I need to work in order to buy shoes.
Yeah, you need to work a whole lot to buy some shoes. So she had this whole shoe thing.
I do. I love
like
shoes.
3 closets, but you know, your problems are.
It's not 3. It's like only 2.5. But anyway, meaningful for them, right? So, TinTim, talk to us about when you're doing these focus groups and when you're getting the young people involved. What specifically do you have to do to kind of encourage them to participate? Really give them a sense that we're going to listen to what you're saying, trust us. How do you build those relationships to really get the good stuff out of the young folks you guys collaborate with?
Actually, right now, one of the challenges of the YMCA, I think not only my YMCA, but across the YMCA, is really recruiting young people and mobilizing young people. Yeah. But in times like this, like after the pandemic, having a collective effort, which they have also the same issues, collecting them, planning with them, and guiding them to have this dream or like a vision. If you have a vision and you show them and you bring them to that roadmap or the plan, I think the young people will participate.
And there's no vision, the people perish.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
You have to show them the picture.
We experience that too. Like, we really want to hear from young people, but they're busy. We may not have done our best work in the past, right? Really engaging them so they don't necessarily trust. We're going to listen to what they're saying now. Sometimes we just have gaps in access because we do amazing stuff with little kids. We got bunches of them. But then there's kind of like this fall off, and then they come back, as young adults or whatever. So, we feel your pain.
One thing we did that I think is important as well is we actually paid them. You know, we paid them for
What
their
a
time.
concept,
Yeah.
right?
That makes a
We're
difference.
talking about work.
Right.
What a concept.
Yeah, we're like, well, we're asking you for your ideas.
Yeah,
and
and your
really,
time.
and their time.
That is a
And
great
you know what?
idea.
And we're paid for our time and our ideas. And
That's
so we
great.
wanted to
That's
give them
great.
that same value. Their
Yeah.
thought leadership is important to us. And so we paid them, youth all over the world. We put a fund together and we gave each group money so that they could pay the people, they could at least feed them depending on what
Yeah.
the resources
That's
were.
that's payment. Feeding
they
is
understand
payment. I have done plenty of things for a good meal.
Yeah.
I worked extra for
I mean, but you got to be able to put them in that situation, and I think young people are smart enough sometimes. Like, hold up, now, you getting my opinion and everything.
Right.
Can I get a little something
My
out of it? Give me a
idea,
pizza,
yeah.
or a couple of dollars, or something. But I mean, the whole part of providing training, allowing them to have voice about their future, helping them create that vision, bringing them out of that shell. I mean, those are just fascinating things, to have as end results of your programming.
Oh, so what I want to know is, have you ever run into a set of young people and you kind of had your mind made up, or you kind of thought you knew where you wanted to go or something, and then you ran into a set of young people and was like, that sucks. Like, don't do that. Like, how do you respond to that when you really think, I think this is the solution, and then the young people tell you, it's not. I saw you smiling, TinTim, like that happened. That happened to you.
So many times.
So many times it happens. They're like, that sucks.
Yeah, but I just proved them wrong. I said, wait and see. You see?
I love it. I love it.
Wait
We're like,
and see. And then they join me now.
And that's right. They come around later. I know that's right. That's right.
What are you guys hearing from? Tell me about something that you've heard from the young people as they've gone through the program. Like, what's the feedback that you're receiving?
I've had some young people who quit jobs because there's a great resignation now.
Yeah. Yep.
Sometimes they said they are not receiving like fair salary, something like that, or the work condition is not healthy for them, or the relationship with the people around the workplace is not healthy. So sometimes, even though they are passionate about the job, but some external factors that are affecting their work, so they quit the job.
Yeah.
So then I realized it's not just about what you love to do or your passion. It's also about the environment where you are also working,
That's important.
So there's a lot of components that we have to consider in doing our plan for this type of program, especially the meaningful work.
That's really important, that environment. Like, employers could stand to learn from that. Like, we always say we want this young workforce, but then are our environments really conducive? Do we treat them well? Do they get a sense of belonging? Right. Do we give them like the crappiest jobs nobody else wants to do, right? And do we not pay them well and put these excuses in the air like, oh, it's because they don't have experience or they're young or whatever, even though they could be incredibly talented? Like, what is that environment like?
Because we found out when we were in the heat of the pandemic, it was the entry-level individuals who were working
absolutely carrying us
was the
through.
heroes.
Yep.
Right. They opened up the stores. They were at a restaurant.
Front lines at our
essential
wine.
places that we needed.
Yep.
Like, we asked them to carry us.
Yep.
And now it's like, what are we doing for that group now that things are coming back to normal per se? And I got to imagine that's challenging out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some of the advocacy work that we do is around just that, because when we're working with employers, and not all employers, some employers are really inclusive and really friendly to young people, but some employers still kind of have the attitude of, well, you don't have enough experience, and therefore you're going to be the person who scrubs the toilets, because when I was a young person, when I first started working, I scrubbed the toilets, and that's what I did.
And they hated it when they were young,
Of
right?
course they did.
hated scrubbing
And so
them dang
if you
toilets.
hated it, then like
Then why would
somebody
you
has to
make them
clean the
make the toilet?
toilets, but you can make a great environment for the person who has to clean the toilet.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
And the thing is not everybody is that doesn't work for everybody.
It doesn't
Right.
work.
Not everybody can do physical labor.
Right.
Not everybody's going to be good at it. And so we really work really hard to make sure that the young people who come through our programs they're figuring out what they're going to like and what they're going to hate.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot more about matching than it
Right.
is about them just gaining whatever experience it is that they can gain. You know, it's like, okay, for my example that I used before, you want to work with animals. Well, nobody was going to hire her to work with animals because she didn't have the qualifications. But if we can make that values match and say, okay, you love animals, well, how about conserving their habitat? For her, that allowed her to be able to do the work
Right.
that made sense. And so a lot of it is just getting to know them on an individual level.
Yeah.
And how can we work together one-to-one to be able to help you grow. And you know what? If I know that job is going to make you clean a toilet and that's going to be offensive to your dignity, I'm not going to send you there.
Right.
I'm not going to
Right.
send you there.
Right.
You know, this concept, particularly how it has emerged during the pandemic and with the younger generations, you know, so many folks who have been in the workforce for years, they can tell you horror stories about them working places for years that they absolutely hated, but they did it because I needed the money. I had to take care of my family, take care of myself. But it just seems like the younger generation's like, ain't nobody got time for that. I'm not gonna work for 10 or 15 years in something I absolutely hate.
Right.
Like, I know, they just know, like, deep down in their soul that there is a match. Like, I can love what I do and make good money, and they won't settle for less. That is so wonderful to me, because you literally waste years of your life, right?
Right.
Particularly in some areas where you really gotta love it in order to do it. Because some days after a while, I'm like, I sure am glad I love this job.
Yeah.
'Cause good gracious, it's hard.
Yeah, we live in the space of that. I know for me, I tell people, my worst day is probably better than people's best days at work, because I love what I'm doing. I know that I'm called to work in the space that I am, and it's like, if we can give those skills to young people, because they want to work in organizations that have a cause that they're connected to and have purpose and have meaning, versus just some transactional type of work. They want to do transformational type of things, and these soft skills that we're able to provide them to be prepared for whatever environment, if that is cleaning the toilets, if that is running the top of the organization, but we're providing those soft skills to make sure that they're in that right place. And the things that you guys are talking about is just really, like I said, amazing to be able to prepare these young people for the future.
Yes. So, TinTim, when you were talking before about making sure that the young people are going into the right environment, right, where they feel that they're doing meaningful work, are there any components to your program where you do work with employers and kind of give them a heads up and say, hey, these are the things that really rub today's workforce? Like, these are the things you should probably stop doing.
Actually, I have an acronym for, like a decent work.
Yeah.
And I have used the POWER. Remember, Kirsty, the POWER? POWER stands for like young people, or to enable them to participate in personal and skills development. One, they have to obtain an appropriate social security benefits as well.
Yeah.
They should have a working, humane, and equal environment, a good environment. They should experience gender equality, express themselves, and receive fair and just income. So these are like my criteria.
All right.
In order for them to have a decent work. So it's
That's
really
excellent.
difficult maybe, but at least that's just fair for everyone, I think.
Yeah. I love that power.
You see that posted somewhere.
Well,
we're gonna
it's
give
gonna
you
go.
credit a couple of times.
It feels
but,
like a
I think-
T-shirt.
yeah.
It feels like a T-shirt to me. Power. Yeah, I love it, and it's all so true, right?
Right.
It, and I think that many of us in businesses, we recognize that, but do we, in the day-to-day operations of our businesses and stuff, do we know how important that really is? Yeah. I love that. So how are you activating the power, right? Because we're going to stay on that. That's some good stuff, TinTim. How are you activating the power in Vancouver, working with employers to kind of help, particularly since you work with such a specialized population in that workforce development space?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is just working with the employers
Yeah.
and, you know, getting consent of the participants to see how much information they wish to share. More often than not, they are interested in sharing information.
Okay, good.
Because our employers, you know, they know that that's going to actually help them to get further. And, you know, we talk to them when they first come in because we ask them all sorts of really intrusive questions about themselves, about, you know, what their housing situation is like, about substance use, about all sorts of different things, about what their day-to-day schedule looks like. And we say to them, look, we're asking you for this information not to screen you out, but to make sure that the program that we build for you is individualized and offers all those extra supports. So we on our end can offer supports, like we can give them rental subsidies if they need them. We can buy food for them. We can buy clothing. But then on the other end, once they get into with their employers, we can also still provide those supports. You know, we're working directly with employers to make sure that the employers know the group, whether they know specifically what's going on with a specific participant, maybe not, they may, but they understand sort of the group. And so, you know, we do advocacy, we do training and work with employers to talk to them about these different types of issues. We'll do mediation with employers, with participants. And I always tell participants, you know, if you're going to quit, talk to me first.
Right. Don't just go on. Yes.
Don't just go and do that thing.
Yes.
Make sure that we can have this conversation. But then one of the things that we did that was interesting with our most recent program is we brought employers in to actually design the program with us.
Okay.
So we've got the information from the participants about what they want to see. We also got the information from the employers. So what is it that, you know, how do we bridge what the participants need to know in order for them to be successful, and then what types of supports will they need in order to continue? And in some cases, it's as simple as a bus pass for them to get to and from work.
Wow.
Right? Or an alarm clock so that they can wake up in the morning.
Right. Advocacy work is so important, and I heard you guys, both of you all, talk about that a little bit. How are you advocating for the young people? Are you bringing other organizations in, and you guys going? What are you doing with advocacy type work?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways that we do it. A lot of it is just sort of on the ground, right? So we're working with organizations and working with people to try to sort of push the message that young people. One of my biggest advocacy messages is, you know, when we view young people as entitled, we're doing them a disservice. And so it's just having those conversations with employers, having conversations with people, participating on regional roundtables, and then, you know, working with the larger global community as well to look at different types of contexts and how we can support young people sort of in the, you know, in a larger context.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So
And we cannot do it alone, you know.
that's what I was gonna ask you.
We need multi-stakeholders. We are not expert on a lot of things. Yeah, but you know, us in our local, we also partner with local government agencies.
Good.
Schools, other NGOs, because we have different expertise that we have to put in together to work for this betterment of the young people. So this is what we do for the advocacy. It's a multi-stakeholders job, so it's not just the YMCA.
So if you had to give the folks who are listening to this who really want to fortify or start or ramp up their workforce development programs, and you had to give them one cheat code, right? Like, here's the secret sauce to it, here's the secret ingredient. What would you tell them, TinTim?
I would say action puts meaning on words, you know, no matter how much you plan. If you don't see any actions, as I have said, wait and see, you know?
Yes.
You have to do the action.
Yes. Don't talk about it, be about it. Yes, that's
it's
excellent.
It's not just on words. There are so many plans, there are so many visions, but if you do not put that into action, it will not happen.
It will. That's good. Okay, top that, Kirsty.
I don't know if I can.
Top that.
I think the one thing I often say is you need to deliver the right service to the right person at the right time, right? And so it's hard to say what the right answer is. The main thing is it needs to be fun. It needs to be engaging. It needs to keep young people's attention. You know, I can't stand there and just sort of talk at somebody and expect that they're going to learn. I need to give them an opportunity to experience whatever it is that I want them to learn, because that's when they remember. And so you need to develop the programs around what it is that they need and allow them to explore and to learn and to develop. You know, I can tell somebody be on time. That's how you're going to find work.
Yeah.
That doesn't do them any good. I've just wasted a couple words on that person.
And some seconds they'll never ever get back in life,
Exactly.
right? Yes,
Exactly.
that's amazing. Okay, folks, y'all heard it. Y'all better listen. That's man.
That's good
so
stuff.
simple but so complex. I hope folks are listening. Thank you, TinTim. Thank you, Kirsty. It was amazing talking to you guys about the spectacular things you are doing in workforce development. I feel confident for all of the young people that their programs
I think we got a
interfacing
podcast
with.
here that strategy is going to be used
Yes,
forever.
indeed.
Loving to talk about purpose. Advocating for
meaningful work.
Advocating for these young people in the space.
Yeah.
Hey, look. Thank you, Causenetic family, for listening to us today.
Thank you. On this episode called, you ready? Work. Oh, with
Hey,
the
look.
amazing TinTim and Kirsty.
Hey, look, and subscribe and listen to us weekly.
And don't be shy. Give us a 5-star review.
And as always,
Be dynamic.
be phenomenal.
Be cosmetic.